Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tastemakers podcast. This is, of course, a podcast where we talk about everything in the world of TV and film, let you know what's good, what's not, and what's happening. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me, as always, is Grace Leeder. How you doing, Grace?
I'm doing well, Taran. I feel like it's warming up in the part of the world where I live a little bit. I feel like the TV season is maybe warming up a little bit as well. I think some good TV on. I think right now.
TV's been pretty good. Yeah. I mean, every Thursday I get to look forward to watching The Pit.
Yeah, we're about halfway. Just one episode, 2 episodes past halfway. We should. I feel like that would be worth a check-in of The Pit.
I feel sad that it ends, you know?
I know.
I don't want it to end.
I know.
I like just having it in my life. Luckily, it's on a quick schedule. Yes, plenty to talk about today as we catch up on some of the things that we've watched over the last couple of weeks, some of the things that are airing, about to air, some movies that are out. Of course, the Oscars are coming up, the Academy Awards this coming Sunday. There's some news and some sort of like back and forth conversation about that. And we have not yet talked about the Paramount Netflix battle, which has in fact ended with Paramount winning the bid for Warner Brothers Discovery.
But Netflix sent me an email many months ago saying they bought HBO. Remember that? Remember when they emailed us all like, "Hey, it's good, we got it."
So we'll talk a little bit about that. We're not exactly breaking at this point. If you listen to or read any discussion about these kinds of things, then you've already heard plenty, I'm sure. But we'll give you a quick breakdown, and our thoughts on the situation as well. So tons to talk about here, Grace.
Yeah, there's a lot. I watched a lot of new TV and movies as well, so I'm excited.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's start it off with some Oscars talk. I think there's two major things we want to talk about here today with the Oscars. We're not going to do a full rundown of all the nominations because kind of the Golden Globes beat them to it anyway.
One thing is that the Oscars are way too late. I feel like they need to be a little sooner in the year. Yeah.
Mid-March is wild. That's like a quarter of the way through the year at that point.
The big pick suggests the week between the Super Bowl and the week before the Super Bowl, which is like the Pro Bowl or whatever. So like the All-Star, that's perfect. That would be perfect. That would have been like more than a month ago. Would have been great.
Yeah. So the biggest news with the Oscars that I've been seeing a bunch of, it comes about by the best performance by a lead actor here that I have it up on the screen. The nominees, of course, Timothee Chalamet, Leonardo DiCaprio, Ethan Hawke, Michael B. Jordan, and Wagner Moura. This, I think the last time we spoke, Grace, 2 weeks ago, you were like, "Oh, it looks like Timothee has sort of like come into prominence as the front runner to win this category."
Yeah, it felt for a while that it was Leo or Timmy, and maybe Timmy is too young because like it seems like for actor in a leading role, they don't like to give it to the young guy. You get it much later in your career, as happened to Leo. Like you could argue sort of Leo missed, many Oscar wins when he maybe was more deserving, and he ends up winning for The Revenant. And so it's funny to think that he's the guy who might like win instead of Timmy. And then the other thing that happened even before the news this week is that I feel like Michael B. Jordan has made a little bit of a case. He won at the Actor Awards, I believe, for his performance. And there's a little bit of like, could Michael B. Jordan just sneakily win? I still think that's a long shot. I still think it will be Timothee or Leo. Timmy put his foot in his mouth a little bit this week. Was in an interview with sort of a one-on-one with Matthew McConaughey. He was expressing his desire to not be part of an industry that is sort of as niche or not as popular as the ballet or the opera, which is a thing that I've said on this podcast in terms of I feel like movies will not be a thing that don't exist. They will be more of a niche thing that people do, sort of eventized to like have a night out and go to the movies, a la the ballet and the opera. It's very funny the timing of this. I literally saw my first opera in February, and I'm going to the ballet for the first time next month. Went to the ballet and bought the opera before any of this happened. So I think it's like very funny timing for me. The other thing about this though is that like the voting closed. By the time this like sort of broke and became a thing online, people had already voted. So it doesn't seem like this thing is going to hurt him necessarily. I think it's more so whether like this type of energy in which the thing he said was, I don't want to work in the Ballet of the Opera. Nobody cares. And he sort of said, oh, I don't know why I'm taking shots for no reason. Um, I think the type of energy that he's espousing in this clip is more so the thing that might have already like hurt his chances, because I think there is a segment of online people in particular, whether or not this is true for the people who are voting, seem to be a little bit off put by Timothee Chalamet's very public ambition to be successful at acting.
Yeah, so I think voting ended on March 5th, it looks like.
Yeah.
Which would have been about 4 days ago. And I'm not entirely sure when the comments were made, but
the interview I think happened a little bit sooner, but then I feel like it really blew up
it
sort of like
didn't it
Friday,
wasn't as
Saturday,
popular, yeah.
online. Yeah.
But yes, I mean, in general, he's been very like he's been lobbying really hard. He's been campaigning. He's been and also like in a way that kind of matches the like naked ambition of his character,
100%.
which is also funny because like the whole thing with his character is that he is like the best in a really niche sport.
Well, I think what's interesting is that I do feel like a lot of the stuff he was doing for a little, like, so last year he wins the Golden Globe for his Bob Dylan performance. And he says, like, I want to be one of the greats. I want to be winning these awards forever. I feel like that's sort of, not that it's but it's a real point in which people are like, is he sort of saying the thing out loud that you're not supposed to say out loud? And then he has this thing this year. He has this movie come out where both him and the character, they do have similarities to the point where he is promoting the movie, I think in a way that was successful for the movie, but it also feels like he's promoting himself. And also that's kind of the way that movies get promoted now, is like it's so much through like what people are like, because I feel like a lot of us, like I feel like a lot of people could go through their whole day and never see ads, because you're not maybe you don't have TV where you're watching ads, maybe you're whatever. So it comes through these like memify, like it needs an online presence in some way. And often like, well, Timmy is an example of the type of person who does a lot of online stuff to promote his movie. And then sort of there has been this like, also he's campaigning now to win.
Yeah. So just a funny kind of turn of events here. You don't often see this happen in the lead up to the Academy Awards, that like somebody becomes a front runner and then it drops out. I guess we saw this somewhat recently with Amelia Perez in terms of like a movie that this happened to. But usually it seems relatively simple. It's like, well, there's momentum, it builds, and then it ends.
Well, I think there's two. One is that I do think there is these sort of like ebbs and flows of campaigns, where what's happening, I think, nowadays is there's so many precursors. There's so many different awards where you start to see the pattern, and the Oscars are so late that the Oscars are sort of like the last thing, and everything is sort of prediction market to the Oscars. And so by the time the Oscars come around, it does seem like, well, I feel like more and more it feels like, well, like this movie's going to win Best Picture and this person's going to win this thing. This category over here could be a surprise, but I feel like more and more it feels a little predictable, I guess.
Well, then, it might be it might be worth mentioning, like when you mention prediction markets, that like
literal prediction
what we saw at the Golden Globes was them like literally bringing up like the poly market, whatever betting lines for each category, which is becoming an ever increasing presence in our current society, is these like gambling apps where it started with sports betting, and now it's getting to be like you can just bet on almost anything, and you have to wonder if that will start to influence the results of these things to some degree, especially when it's a pretty relatively small subset of people who are in control of choosing the winners and losers. It is interesting.
how fun it was at the Golden Globes to see the prediction market be like 95% sure that Amy Poehler is about to win for Good Hang, and then she would win for Good Hang, and you're like, why are we doing this? Why are we putting these prediction markets on the screen?
I
But
thought that was wild. I
I
thought that
don't
was
get
a
it.
wild choice to basically advertise gambling on the Golden Globes,
Well,
but
they made a lot of money from Polymarket, I think, is the answer to
I'm
that
sure.
question.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I mean, I don't understand how it's a thing, but it is a thing. I still think Timmy will win. I think either Leo or Michael B. Jordan feels like a surprise at this point. The thing is, I don't really feel like any of them are is sort of the wrong choice. I don't feel like there is necessarily a wrong choice in that category. So I think it's sort of fun to think that we could get an upset. Although I'm probably in the camp that it's funny because I don't think this is Timmy's best performance, but I would like him to win. I think that the thing of like don't give it to them while they're young is very silly, but whatever.
I'd be happy for Michael B. Jordan to win, but
Me
that's
too.
probably going to be my answer for
I
most things when it comes to Sinners.
I think a lot of movie folks are like feel like Ethan Hawke is like actually the best, it's the best performance. I think that's a real long shot, but I know a lot of people feel that way. It's really strong. Wagner Moore, I think, could make a case for himself that he's, like a big reason why that movie works as well as it does. He's very compelling. So it's a strong category.
As somebody who has watched Ethan Hawke in a ton of movies, he evaporated into that role in a way that was pretty incredible. Let's talk about Best Picture briefly, because that's the only other like real big thing to talk about here.
There was the other controversy of Jessie Buckley hates cats. Did you hear? Did this come across your? Did this come across?
I think
feed?
I saw that she apologized for her cat comments, but that was all. I didn't read into it.
So when she was with her partner, they moved in together. He had a cat. The cat did not like Jessie Buckley, and the cat was rehomed. And so there's a lot of, oh my God, she's an animal hater. She hates cats.
Oh boy,
there's a little bit of a slam against Jessie Buckley, but such as life. I don't think it's really going to affect her ability to win. I'll talk more about Jessie Buckley in a bit because I watched The Bride. Best Picture. I mean, Sinners momentum, I feel like, is like the thing that's sort of happening. It feels like this is one battle after another is probably going to win. And if there is a chance for an upset, Taran, it's Sinners could win is the feeling around.
I would be very happy for Sinners to win. I honestly, I don't even know if I would say it's my favorite movie of the year at this point. I think Train Dreams, but either one of them, both of them are two of my favorite movies ever at this point. So I'd be very happy for either one of them to win. Obviously, Train Dreams is not going to win. But I definitely put my not my money, because I don't think it's as likely, but
we're going to the poly market, Tara. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
My hopes and dreams lie in Sinners, I guess. Not that I didn't like One Battle After Another. I thought it was very good. But I loved Sinners. I've watched all of these movies now. I did actually watch The Secret Agent, which was the last one for me to watch. And I found it to be okay. I think it did some things really well, and other things just they felt a little sort of like a little slow. It was a little slow. It was a little plodding.
3-hour movie, Taran. And I said
very long.
Yeah. I said this because part of it is like even like the title, like what is the secret agent, is a thing that I feel like takes a long time for the movie to sort of like tell you what that is. It's doing some very wild things.
Just to interject for a moment on that point, because I'm remembering now, this movie took me, I think, because I'm somebody that does not like to look at what the plot of the movie is before I watch. I like to let the movie tell me what it's about. And this movie, I think, took at least an hour for me to know what the movie was about.
Yes.
It did not care to tell me whatsoever. And in addition to that, I think there's a lot about Brazilian culture that I don't know enough about, that there's a lot of stuff that's like, I'm able to infer some things, but there's a lot of nuance that's probably going over my head when I'm watching this movie.
Yeah, a good example is there's this thing in the movie where there's this hairy leg that is supposedly like the thing that is committing a bunch of these crimes. And you see, there's the scenes where you see the hairy leg like committing these crimes. And then in a later scene, there's a newspaper article that's like where they're reading it and they're like, oh, the hairy leg attacked. That is a reference to, in the 70s in Brazil, journalists would write about a hairy leg attacking vulnerable groups of people like queer men in parks and things like that. And the hairy leg was basically their way of like getting around being censored from being able to say like the police beat up a bunch of gay men in a park. And so the movie does this thing where it sort of like makes that scene real, but then you get cut back out of it and then they're reading the newspaper. But I think without a lot of that context, you would like, you're like, we're just trying a wild swing when really it's like based off of, real stuff. So
that's actually one of my favorite parts of the movie, is that the director is so clearly a horror movie fan.
Yes.
And you can see that influence everywhere, both literally and figuratively in this movie. And I loved that aspect of it. But down to like very practical effects on things.
Yes. Jaws referenced a lot. It's just a movie that I said to you before we started that this is a movie that is almost 3 hours, or maybe it is 3 hours, that I think like is served well by a rewatch, and it's not compelling enough to be like, I gotta rewatch. And I don't mean compelling as in I did find it. I actually think I'm probably much higher on this movie than you. Again, I have this like very different experience where I saw it with a very large Hispanic audience at TIFF, like in a full theater. So my experience of it was just like very different. I think if you're like trying to watch this at home, I think the experience is probably different for many people. But I mean compelling in the way of like, it's not super fun. It's not like the most fun to be like, I'm gonna go sit through this 3-hour movie and rewatch it. But it's doing a lot of things that I think only makes sense once you reach the end. In which case, while you're watching the film, it can be a little disorienting, a little slow, a little plodding. It really is anchored probably by, the Wagner Moura performance, as well as some other folks in the movie who are very good. But it's an interesting choice to have been nominated for Best Picture.
It's a movie that like was not made for me. In a very real sense, it was made for a Brazilian audience. It's very.
It's not true. At the Q&A, they were like, "Why'd you make this?" We're like, "Well, we think Taran Armstrong's really gonna love it."
It's very anchored in a time and a place, and it's so, from what I can gather, so extremely accurate to the details and the feeling of that place and that culture. And it makes no apologies for it. And it makes no real attempt, from my perspective, at inviting other, like, it's in teaching people about it. It's really, and I don't fault it for that, but it was very difficult for me to engage with it personally, I think, which is part of the issue.
2 years in a row, and I'm going to say this thing, and I don't mean to make it seem like it's undeserving of this, but Brazilian people are very passionate about their cinema. And particularly this is 2 years in a row where a story that's very much about Brazilian history has been sort of elevated into Best Picture nominee. The movie, it can't be bad and do that. This movie is not bad. It is just, I think it's very different. But I think it's, 2 years in a row with I'm Still Here last year. I think I'm Still Here is better than this.
I'm Still Here was more accessible, I would say, in my opinion.
Whereas I think like maybe you could, although the performance last year from I can't remember the lead actress in that, but Wagner Moura's performance here is probably just as good. But yeah, a really an interesting movie. Again, in terms of Best Picture winner, I think this is probably one battle, and it's I think it would be a huge surprise for Sinners to win. It would be a very cool moment. The one debate that I feel like, it feels a lock that PTA is going to win for Best Director. I do think that is the reason that Sinners maybe has a chance. If people feel like, well, PTA will get to be on stage and give the speech, and he'll do that for one battle, and then we'll like sort of, give praise to this other film that we all are really loving. Although I argue like the opposite could be true, where like I feel like Coogler winning for director would be very, very well deserved. And then one battle after another winning Best Picture. But it does seem like PTA is just like such a lock for director that the only way for Sinners to get sort of that that momentum would be through a Best Picture, which would be the last thing of the night and would be very cool. So we'll see.
I will say this, because in thinking about it just now, like if Sinners won, whenever the movie that I actually love from the year does manage to, and it's happened a couple times, Slumdog Millionaire was one, Parasite was another. I do then sometimes later down the line feel, because I've been going through my favorite movie. I'm trying to put like a list together of all my favorite movies.
Okay.
And I'm realizing that like they feel, it feels different when the movie that you love ended up winning. It feels like it's not yours as much anymore. It feels less personal. Like, oh, this won Best Picture. Did it really deserve that? Like, is it one of those movies? And so maybe in some ways it's better if Sinners does. I feel like the Best Director actually Oscar is maybe the better one to get
I
if
know.
in terms of your own personal enjoyment of the movie.
The other one where I often am like, that's actually my favorite movie of the year is often in the screenplay.
Screenplay, yeah, that's another one.
Banshees of Inisherin, I think, won screenplay, and that's like my favorite movie of that year. And it's like, yeah, you can sort of find your sneaky, and they're like, these people get it. There is an argument I saw earlier this week that the way the voting works for this stuff is that the different you vote by profession, so directors vote for the director nominees, actors vote for actors, etc. And then for the Oscars, everybody votes. There's two interesting things about voting this year. One is it does seem like you had to at least tick off boxes that said you watched everything in a category before you could get to vote on a category, which you could just lie and say you didn't, but the argument would be that people will be compelled to be like, fine, I'll watch everything. And then Best Picture being ranked ballot, which I do think gives credence to One Battle After Another winning this year, because I can't see, I don't feel like people really hate One Battle. If Hamnet was the front runner, I feel like there are people who do not love Hamnet and would be voting it like last. And so then therefore it could be like bumped down, and something that's like everybody's second favorite film is voted into one. I don't feel like that is the energy of One Battle After Another.
Yeah.
To detractors, it's actually a great year that it feels like a lot of people are like, there's a lot of different, the idea that we have to like one of them and hate the other one is so silly. Like, they're both really great films. So yeah. Anyway, it'd be interesting to see if people like sort of like directors voted for directors. Everybody votes for Best Picture, but these other categories are just sort of the folks who are that profession would vote for that thing. I wonder how much it would have changed a lot of the outcomes. But alas.
All right. Paramount has acquired Warner Brothers Discovery, and that's as we've talked about before, there was a bit of a bidding war, and we call it a bidding war, but it was really just like Netflix offered a certain amount, and then Paramount kept coming back. And by Paramount, we mean the Ellisons, along with some like foreign backed money. Yeah. And kind of like the threat of, hey, we've got Trump on our side with regulation if you dare continue forward with this. There was a bit of a circus that happened where Netflix was questioned about how woke they are by the government, and all of that stuff was going on. And then Paramount continued to raise their bids until finally Warner Brothers turned around and said to Netflix, like, hey, you got any more for us? And Netflix said no, and they backed out. And Paramount has now acquired Warner Brothers Discovery, which a lot of people are like, oh shit, we didn't actually think that would happen. We were all like, nobody wanted Netflix to get them, but we really didn't want Paramount to get them.
Yeah.
Particularly because of their acquisition of the news portion of that company, like CNN. The Ellisons are now in charge of a lot of different mainstream news outlets. This company has already been sort of proven to be very like anti DEI, very much like, we need to make sure that things are balanced politically, in quotes, which primarily means, and I think that basically they're not even going that far as to mask it. They're just saying nothing can be anti-Trump. And so there's a lot of like censorship issues here on top of the consolidation of these two big companies. Them merging together also likely means a large amount of layoffs because there's a lot of overlap.
Synergy, Taran.
Yeah. So it's big stuff. A lot of things happening here, and again, like nothing significant, at least on my end, to add, other than like I don't think this is a very good thing from a practical level for you as a listener. Very likely, the biggest thing that you're going to experience is that they've already announced that HBO Max and Paramount Plus will be merged into one service. It will likely cost more, would be my guess. And maybe to that degree, Paramount Plus, which sort of famously has terrible UI, will be updated to something a little more modern because HBO is at least a little better there. But like, who knows at this
Well,
point?
it's because like it's like, oh yeah, it'll cost more. Like in the meantime, it will cost less. So because like if you imagine you're paying for Paramount and
Right.
HBO, the
Yes.
combined thing will. But the bad news is now that's two less people who have to keep their costs down because the other one has their price point at a, if they're both, if they're both $20, now they can be 30, and then eventually they'll be like, we might as well just be, let's be 35, let's be 40 a month, So
Yeah.
in the long run, it's bad. It is
There's
bad.
a world here where you're watching live feeds on the HBO app. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
this, like
Right.
this is
Right. In the long run, the other thing too is like whether or not they will remain separate from a production company standpoint. Whether they will does HBO have its own brand of things that will get to go out and try to create television shows under the HBO banner? Paramount creates things under the Paramount banner, or if that all becomes one, then you just presume they make less content overall. So that's bad. There is this number that they've been throwing around about whether that they will continue to make 30 movies or 30 movies a year. Combined is a number that's been thrown out. They say they basically, based on what Paramount does and what HBO does, they basically already do that. So yes, they will continue to do that. I mean, really, when you look at a bunch of the movies that came out this year, I think one of the worst things that's happening here is like so many of those are Warner Brothers movies. Not a lot of those are Paramount. I think is Paramount in any of the movies that got nominated for Best Picture? Don't think so. So HBO has had Warner Brothers has had a pretty successful last few years in terms of like the type of movies they're making, and whether or not like that all gets sort of absorbed and then less stuff gets made. If they're making less stuff, they want to sort of go bang for your buck and try to go for these big swings that cost more money with the potential to make $1 billion, at the risk of sort of like these sort of soulless franchise IP content. It would have been bad if Netflix bought it too. The real answer was like we needed somebody else to buy HBO, Warner Brothers, that wasn't already had all of this stuff in and of itself. But I do think this is definitely worse. The big winner here is Netflix. Netflix had a buyout fee that if the sale didn't go through, they got paid.
Or Warner Brothers, depending
true
on who you are in Warner Brothers. If you're
I
David
think
Zaslav, you're kind of the biggest winner probably.
Well, yeah, Zaslav's selling for $31 a share, which like seems sort of unreasonable. There was this time period where like it seemed like, what is HBO do? Like, what is Warner Brothers doing? They do not have it together. He has made a massive deal. Whether Zaslav, it seems like he was more set up to move into a position at Netflix where he would have been, in charge of something that seems less assured on the Paramount side, but certainly doesn't seem like he would be out of luck completely, or he could just take his money and go somewhere else. But yeah, but Netflix got what did they get? Like a $2.8 billion breakup fee that Paramount ended up paying.
Basically it was part of their negotiation because they had gotten so far along in the process that if they decided to, if Warner Brothers decided to back out, then they would owe close to $3 billion to Netflix. Paramount had to pay for that when that was part of their offer to Warner Brothers Discovery. And in addition to that, like this was another huge part of this. Throughout this process, this back and forth, the stock for Netflix had been dropping pretty considerably. For whatever reason, the market did not like this, either the back and forth of the deal itself or whatever the case is. And as soon as they backed out and they got their $3 billion free dollars, the stock rocketed back up. And so, a lot. And on top of that, they're getting they're like looking like the good guy in this whole process. So like it's been very positive overall, I would say, for Netflix.
Yeah. So yeah. Seems bad, we'll see. I mean, yeah, and that's not even to mention any of the news stuff, which is now CBS, which is now being run by Barry Weiss, is also going to have CNN. So that seems bad, but what can you do?
What can you do? All right. Should we talk about some of the stuff we've watched?
Very quickly, I'll just say Mike Flanagan signed an overall deal on Amazon, which seems. Oh, I think you and I. Are you a fan of his? I think you were a fan of his stuff. He's the mastermind behind a lot of this the Netflix horror content, Midnight Mass, Haunting of Bly Manor, Hill House, and so yes, he already had Carrie over at Amazon that's coming out. Not sure when. You presume later this year if it is coming out this year, but seems like he's signed an overall deal, leaving Netflix as well. So it seems to be a bit of. I think there is also a little bit of a content creator showrunner bidding war at the moment between a few places in terms of I think we saw that with Taylor Sheridan leaving Paramount. Where did he went to? Did he go to Amazon? Can't remember where he went. The Duffer brothers. They left Netflix to go somewhere. They're all going. They're all leaving, and they're all going places.
They're just transferring around.
They're just. It's like an NBA team. They're like an NBA league. Yeah, but I'm interested in what Flanagan does. It's a little. I mean, I think he had such a run of success, and then it feels like sort of petered out at the. I mean, I liked House of Usher, and I liked Midnight Club was the one that I think that got canceled after a season. But very happy for Mike Flanagan. I like
Mike Flanagan and Dan Fogelman, the two monologue writers, basically.
Right.
Like they'll just turn every scene into a monologue from somebody. Dan Fogelman, the guy currently doing Paradise. Had previously done This Is Us. Paradise, by the way, did premiere. I did watch. I think I've watched the first 3 episodes, which I think
that's what dropped on
premiered.
Yeah, that's what dropped.
I think the 4th one may be out already. I'm not sure.
I think actually maybe the 5th one might be have dropped today as well. So it drops on Mondays now. So yeah.
Paradise is a show that I thought premiered very well and then kind of slowed down and then had an incredible episode toward the end and then a weird finale. Basically very high highs and then very mid rest of it. And I think it continues to be that for me for the most part. I thought the first episode was pretty good. I thought the second episode was pretty good. I thought the third episode was kind of like, all right, this is that other stuff. Basically, the first 3 episodes were 3 different settings, storylines. And without getting too spoilery, the third one was kind of back to the regular place that the show takes place in. And that's where things have just gotten a bit like Jumpy the Shark kind of stuff to me. And very messy. And so I didn't enjoy that one quite as much, but it's still a watchable show for those high moments. And it's a good time. And I believe they said there'll be one more season. And that's it.
One third season will be its last. Yeah, I totally agree. It's sort of Stars and Scrubs. Like you're like, yeah, this episode, and not even Scrubs. Like episode can be perfectly fine, or it can just be like suddenly really amazing. There's a little bit for me of like the Westworld problem, where like season 1, I think I said this last week exactly, where like season 1 is like robots at a park, like moral ethics of that, and then season 2 is like robots all over the world, and you're like maybe too big, like scale back. But I do think they get there. By the end, I think it was a good decision to drop the 3 because like we just got episode 1 in the first week. That would have been maybe too tonally different. So dropping the 3. I have not watched episode 4 or 5, but I will be keeping along with it. I do enjoy it. I think it's fun.
Yeah. I guess
the pit. Should we talk about if we're talking about shows that are currently
let's talk about the pit. I think the pit is in full stride right now.
Agreed. Yeah.
It came back, and it's tough to come back. Because a lot of shows, they're gone for so long, and then you come back so soon when people aren't as used to it. Only like essentially 8-month gap, and it won all of these awards. The expectations are so much higher now. Nobody had expectations for the pit coming into it. I did a little bit because I was a huge ER fan. But like it kind of came out of nowhere for I think a lot of people. And so for it to now exist in this space where it like won all the awards and it's so much expectations, it comes back and it's just the start of a normal day. You're I think a little bit like, uh-oh, are people going to turn on this show? And I think that like fully it is again, like I said, in full stride. It's past the halfway point. I think every episode has been better than the last, just knocking it out of the park. No complaints.
Knocking it out of the park. Careful at the end of the last episode. Parks.
There was actually a bit of news here. I'll let you talk about your thoughts.
I have a lot of the same thoughts. I think it's really like, I think I did the thing where I had binge watched the end of season 1. And so like we were at such a pace and then coming in, I was like, it was slow, but like not in a bad way. Just like the pace is very different, and I feel like we're now there where you could see the fun will be, I think, in the show of being like, because some of the logic when you're watching a show like Grey's Anatomy, and I don't really watch Grey's Anatomy, but the joke of that is like how much stuff can happen at one hospital. And I feel like what this show is doing is like, yes, these particular days are like not, one to one in terms of like what it, even on the busy, like it is more dramatic in a sense because it's a television show, but also there is something that's very fun about being like, oh yeah, this day is, and the amount of times like they've been saying that, I think like, because we're like however 9 hours into these shifts of being like, this day pretty taking its toll, and by the end of this last episode, we get like another thing that seems like it will be, a reason for this day to be one of the days in which we follow. We are in the pit. So just very well done. I think there's a lot of anxiety and tension built up in terms of, particularly in terms of Dr. Robbie and what is going to happen, and how we sort of conclude the sort of arc that he's on, which is this is supposed to be his last day before he goes on sabbatical. I think it's been very good while getting all of the character beats of all of these characters that we love and introducing new characters that I think have been very compelling as well. Great moment this week when Ogilvy, one of the new residents, is like wants to ask. He's like, "No, put your hand down, Ogilvy." And like, oh, I love this guy. This is so fun. So tremendous.
Yeah, so there was a bit of news about, again, related to the Paramount acquisition, that there was going to be a storyline involving ICE in the pit. And it was being written at around the time that this bidding war sort of started, I guess. And so there was a discussion with the higher ups at Warner Brothers Discovery, because the pit is on HBO. About like, well, we need to make sure that it's balanced. We have a potential buyer essentially that is not very balanced. And so we need to make sure that there's nothing, like too bad. And the pit is very clearly like a very, very political and outspoken show. So I did have a little bit of trepidation coming into this episode, having heard about this prior to the episode. My understanding of it now is actually similar to what we talked about a couple of weeks ago with Andor, when it was like Tony Gilroy was like, yeah, we just did the literal definition of fascism. And it's like that's what they were saying. That's what the pit people were saying. They were like, what, you can't say anything bad about us when we're just doing what literally is happening. Like it's just what's happening. We are not doing anything else. It's literally, you guys are saying that this is what's happening.
This is what plays Melissa King. I'll pull up her name. But she said Taylor Dearden, which is being like, we're just showing things that happen. I guess that's liberal, But we do get the first little bit of that story in the last episode, which
So obviously there's been a bit of concern about like, what about shows like The Pit under this new sort of owner? Is there going to be more of this kind of potential censorship? And unfortunately,
maybe.
I think the answer is like, yeah,
probably.
Probably. So we'll see about that. There's another doctor show that started recently.
Yes.
Scrubs, The Return. It's back. I've watched just the first episode.
What do you make of the decision to fully retcon season 9? Season 9 is like not a thing that basically happened, they say. It's like not in the canon.
So if I'm going to be honest, I don't remember the canon of season 9, so it works perfectly fine for me.
Yes. I'm actually a season 9 defender a little bit, but
I thought it was fine. I just don't remember any significant storylines from it.
Well, yeah, it doesn't really matter. Yeah. So, but season 9 decanonized. Show's been very good so far. I think there's a thing I heard recently in terms of the examination of this I thought was really good. And I actually think there is something to this idea of rebooting shows and coming back later. So King of the Hill is a show that people seem to be really liking, where, the difference between even, an animated show is like, you really can then just like for like probably however many seasons King of the Hill was on, they're all the same age, and now we're like moving in the future, and there's a lot more stuff to play with. But I do feel like this decision to like, part of what didn't work about season 9 of the show is basically being like, yeah, like we're gonna restart this thing again, like we're gonna start with new interns, and it's like
right
no.
after it ended.
Right, which is not what we want. We do still, you know, there's been many doctor comedy shows. The reason that this one works is because it's JD and Turk and Elliot, and so sort of having these people back in the hospital, but in this new sort of like, you know, it's a very timely, you know, point to have a medical show. I think also why The Pit, you know, so much of season 1 storyline of The Pit is like these people are like in the aftermath of having gone through COVID. And so there's a lot of material here, I think, while also being able to be like, okay, these folks, if we've had some time away, we can just be a little like, we can regroup and refresh and not have to like come up with this many jokes per episode, and come back and follow these same people, but they're at a different stage in their life. And so what material is there to sort of mine now? And I think so far so good with Scrubs. I've really enjoyed all the episodes I watched.
Yeah, I watched the one episode and I loved it. I mean, Scrubs, if I haven't said, is the first. Scrubs and Dexter are the first two shows, but Scrubs, even before Dexter, was the first show I like watched all of.
Right.
Like I was on a web browser using like old web player
Forgot about these. Yeah.
technology to like on early like piracy sites, essentially, like watching Scrubs all the way through. And I remember My Lunch, one of the best episodes,
so good,
didn't work on that site, and I kept getting cut off halfway through. It was a whole thing. I heard the opening, the song, the little "I'm no Superman." I had an intense like burst of nostalgia, and it wasn't just nostalgia; it was both nostalgia and I just enjoyed. I haven't laughed at a sitcom in years.
The like cutaway gag thing is like such a staple that I don't know if like many, like, you know, there's a like a Family Guy-esque nature to it, but like the thing of like JD, somebody saying like, you know, liar, liar, pants on fire, and then JD like imagining somebody with their pants on. It's like, it's so good. It's a class. I love it. I love it so much.
Very fearful that like, not only because I haven't gone back to rewatch in a long time, but not only would I feel like if I went back and watched Scrubs now, I'd be like, oh, it's a little bit dated. None of the humor really works for me. It's too slapstick. But, you know, now it's a return. And if it's going to be similar to the style of Scrubs before, then I'm going to be like, okay, maybe the humor won't land for me, but I'll still watch it for the characters, for whatever. But I was actually like enjoying myself. I was chuckling a bit here and there. And I really love the first episode. I'm excited to watch more. And yeah, it's good stuff from Scrubs.
For a while it felt like Michael Schur was going to be sort of like the king of comedy at the moment, which like he still has these shows. He's still Man on the Inside season 2 and got renewed for another season. Like he still has the stuff, but it really does feel like Bill Lawrence probably has the king of TV crown at the moment, because in addition to Scrubs,
crushing it.
Rooster also Shrinking has been on Apple TV. Also like on every network. I guess he's on Apple. Scrubs is on Disney.
Yeah,
Hulu.
He's everywhere.
And then Rooster is the new HBO show. It's the new Steve Carell show. I watched the first episode. I thought it was good, not great. I think there's a lot of promise here. This is not joke a minute, although there is definitely comedy in here. He plays an author who, the first episode, he shows up at her. She's a professor at a university. He goes to visit. He does like a reading of his book at a class, and then sort of ends up sort of in the world of the university. I don't know how much more there. I don't really, the premise of that, I don't know much more. I presume this is like the setting is this college where his daughter works, and he's trying to sort of figure out what he wants to do at this point in his life. Actually, Dr. Cox plays the dean, I believe, at the professor, the guy from what's his name from Ted Lasso, who's Jamie Tart is playing the daughter's ex-husband. So the cast is all sorts of Bill Lawrence universe filled. What is that guy's name? It's doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Yeah, I liked it. I thought it's not amazing yet, but I'm like sort of charmed by it enough that I will definitely keep watching this. One episode per week on Sunday nights. So, yeah.
All right. Industry season 4 just came to a close. And I think it's so funny having gone through the watch of Industry fairly recently and talking about how season 3 felt like such a departure from the previous two. And then watching season 4, which made season 3 look like a tiny little baby step because season 4 was not the same show.
They do this every
Yeah, like, season 4 was about as far from the same show that while following the same characters as you can get. Maybe Search Party is even more of a departure, but in terms of like TV shows that have really gone in a different direction, Industry is unrecognizable from its first couple of seasons. In season 4, it fully becomes like this weird conspiracy political thriller kind of angle, and I was kind of there for it. I kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah, I haven't finished this, so I need to watch more of it. But yeah, yeah, it does seem like Mickey Down and Conrad K are just like, I don't know, let's do this now. Like,
Instead of making a whole new show,
yeah,
why don't we just take the characters from this show and put them in our new show? Essentially,
yeah.
Is the vibe I got. It was good stuff, and I actually feel like it progressed the characters in a really interesting but also natural way. And maybe the best season of the show yet. But very, very different for sure than it had been.
Renewed, I think. Is that going to be
One
the
final season, I
one final
believe.
season? Yeah,
Yeah.
classic.
Um, and then also, just to track this, School Spirits ended its 3rd season. This is a show I liked the first season a bit. The second season I was a little further down on. The 3rd season I've found to be just like it's starting. I'm not sure I'm going to watch a 4th season of School Spirits. It's getting a little tired for me.
Fair.
Yeah.
Okay, I watched a fair bit of. Okay, so the first one I talked about this last week a little bit. Love Story is the new Ryan Murphy show. This is based on the love story between JFK Jr. and what is her, Carolyn Bessette Kennedy. I guess I don't know. I'm not as like over the moon as everybody else seems to be so far after just one episode, but I shall give it more of a chance. I think there's about 6 episodes out of this. It does feel like this is one that like everybody is watching, and so far after one episode, I don't really quite see it because I don't think it quite had the like Ryan Murphy-ness that I thought was coming. I'm a person who's watched a bunch of the monster shows, so like I get it. This so far was a little tame for my like a little you know, it's a love story. It was not super exciting. Also, I don't know whether like JFK Jr. and Carolyn Bessette are like the fodder for me being enamored with the show. But if people think I need to give this more of a chance, I will. So watch that. I am far more intrigued by the show Neighbors, Taran. Did this come on your radar at all? Neighbors?
I've heard about it. I've not watched any of it.
So Neighbors is from the same folks who did, I believe, there's a Florida Man show, and then I think what else did they do? It is Josh Safdie is a producer on it as well. This is a documentary series where every episode highlights one or two folks who are neighbors who hate each other. And if you've ever watched like confrontation videos on TikTok, like if that's ever been your algorithm, I feel like you will love the show Neighbors. So episode 1 is about these two neighbors who live in a very like rural area, and one person decides to put up a fence. And then the other guy has horses, and now the fences have blocked, and these two guys hate each other. And it's just, I don't know, the best comp I heard was sort of that it's very Tiger King-esque, although it does not follow the same people over the course of the show. Every episode does feel like, I can't believe that you found these people to be documented. And I don't know whether it's ethical to watch it, but I am quite enjoying it. Although the 5.8 on IMDb would indicate that people are not enjoying it. So maybe, what do I know? But
I mean,
I love it.
it sounds like it's kind of like trashy reality
It
TV
kind of is trashy
adjacent,
reality TV adjacent.
which
Yeah, I think
means,
so.
people might rate it low, but then also watch it a lot,
But it's on
right? So
HBO,
like,
so it's like well made, So it's very interesting. Um, and then the other new show I watched the first episode of Vladimir, which is the new show on Netflix. The premise here is that
does Rachel Weisz age?
no, I do not believe she does. No. Um, what's the premise of the show? She is a professor whose husband, played by John Slattery, is the chair of the English department, who was recently suspended for sleeping with his students. This does not sound fun, but it is. But so far, so he's on they're Rachel Weisz and him are like married, but we're in open relationship. So he just got to do whatever. And then Leo Woodall is Vladimir, this new professor who has come to work at the English department, and there seems to be some chemistry between the two of them. I really liked the first episode, so I'm gonna watch more of it. I feel like this is like kind of, I don't think this is a you show, Taran. I feel like this is more in the like it's, I don't know, it feels sort of like romance book,
Mhm.
like that sort of, yeah. So I don't know. We'll
I mean,
we'll, we'll
I
see.
genuinely, I was gonna check it out for Rachel Weisz 'cause
Okay, check
I'm a
it out.
fan,
I thought it was
but
like
yeah, I don't know if I'd like it.
it could, I feel like there's the world where, because it's trying to be a comedy, I do worry like how much it's gonna, we'll see. I will watch a little bit more and I'll report back. And then I went to the movies this weekend, Taran, and I saw 3 movies. So
Mhm.
let's start with Hoppers, which is the new Pixar movie, which I
For
will just
very good
say,
things.
yeah, it was a little bit of a delight. Probably one of the better Pixar. I think maybe best Pixar since Coco, maybe. Although Luca newer? I liked Luca. Hoppers is a cute little story. It's, in the trailer they say like it's not Avatar, but it's kind of Avatar. This a girl can enter into a robotic beaver and then tries to figure out the problems of the world with real animals. And there's like John Hamm plays the big evil bad guy who's the mayor who wants to build a new highway over the glade where all the animals live. That's basically all you need to know going into it. I thought it was very funny. There's literally a moment that made everyone in the theater gasp, which from a Pixar movie is, I think, quite incredible. So fun. I think pretty fun. Good installment. Maybe not as like tear jerkery. I talked about Ratatouille recently on my movie podcast that came up on the 100 movies of the 21st century, and I feel like the reason I don't love that movie is because it's not as like tear jerky as a lot of good Pixar movies can be.
I feel
Which
like that's
is
what's been missing with modern Pixar is
like kind of
that, they haven't been as emotional.
like, I think the last classic is like Inside Out, which is like right? Like it's very
Yeah.
emotional. I feel like there is a smidge of it in this movie, but it's not. I don't think at the end you want to cry, but there's like content in it that you're like, oh,
Mhm.
that's sad. That's very sad. But it's good. It's cute. And then I watched The Bride, Taran.
Mhm.
The Bride
Very
is,
different stories, by the way, in the box office for these 2 movies. Hopper's doing very, very well. The Bride is like everything I'm seeing about The Bride is this is why The Bride failed.
yeah, I think it made like $7 million.
And it was very expensive to make from what I've heard.
Yes. So a reimagining of The Bride of Frankenstein, where Jessie Buckley plays the bride, Christian Bale plays Frankenstein. This is directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal. Jake Gyllenhaal is also in this movie. You know what? I had a lot of fun. I think that people are being a little too harsh on this movie. There's definitely some choices. There's a framing device of the way the story is being told that I think would be very polarizing, almost as if, is Mary Shelley the one in control of the bride, which kind of like breaks my brain a little bit. But this is basically one of the best arguments for this movie I heard was like there's so many monster movies where it's a monster sort of going on a rampage and getting to do all this stuff. And the premise of this is kind of like, it feels maybe this is what Maggie Gyllenhaal's interested is like the same things that like men are allowed to do, women are not given the same leeway to do. People are like, oh, a monster movie, this is so like what a gory, wild time. Maybe a woman could just do the same thing. And so I found it to be actually way more fun than I thought. Is it like good? I don't know, but I had a lot of fun watching it. It takes some wild choices, actually, like probably to its detriment when it's when it tries to not be having as much fun and tries to be a little more serious, I'm like, oh, this isn't really working. But when there's literally a dance number in this movie, so it's trying things. So
that being at the core of like its premise, and I did wonder this, makes me think that it's probably a decent amount better than its IMDb rating or probably any user rating that exists. And also probably why there are a lot of articles saying this is why The Bride failed, because I bet there's lots of people in those comments going, yeah,
centered on a woman. Yeah.
it's about women.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like the best movie I've ever seen, but I think it's like way more fun than people are giving it credit for.
Mm.
And if people don't like it, you don't have to like it. But I had some fun watching The Bride. It's maybe a little too long. I think it's like over 2 hours, which is maybe a teensy bit too long, but it's trying stuff. Christian Bale as Frankenstein. Also pretty fun, gotta say.
Yeah.
So yeah. That's what I watched the Peaky Blinders movie. I got to see it in theaters. It's coming to Netflix later this month, so I will not give much more other than to say fun to see Tommy Shelby, Cillian Murphy playing Tommy Shelby on a big movie screen, and it will be delight when people see it on Netflix.
Okay.
Again, not amazing, but it's fine.
Not amazing. Okay, as somebody who loved Peaky Blinders for like one season and then watched another like 4 hoping for that high again and never getting it. Is this just kind of more of the same, or is it worth watching?
The one thing I thought is like, so I think what this was is like, can we wrap this thing up a little bit, like a little bit neater than we were. Barry Keoghan is in this movie, which is kind of fun. And there's actually a lot of like not quite as much of like the Peaky Blinders. Yeah, Rebecca Ferguson and there's someone else who I won't name because I don't think they're. Oh no, Stephen Graham is listed right there. So like there's some people in here. It can be kind of fun. It probably takes itself a little too seriously at times, but it's also trying to be like the thing is called The Immortal Man. So it's a little much, but I do think it's like a good story. I mean, so.
I feel like my issue with Peaky Blinders as it continues on in the series is that like every season felt like it was a movie that was dragged out to be a series. And that's not even really like what I think, right? It's just that like I didn't always feel like there was enough. It just dragged its feet a lot. Well,
yeah.
And so maybe as a movie, this is better pacing. Who knows?
I do think it's like, I feel like by the time I was kind of being like, okay, we could like wrap it up. I'm like, oh, they're wrapping it up,
That's nice.
Yeah. And then I do think it's like a Peaky Blinders story. It works, so yeah.
All right.
That's what I watched.
I did watch a couple of movies as well. Yes. I watched, It Was Just an Accident.
Okay.
Continuing my watch of nominated movies. It's interesting. This is sort of like the way that I saw this movie was that it was more the story behind the making of the movie was more interesting than the movie itself to me, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
So the creator of this movie is like on the run from the government, like not allowed to make movies.
He will go to jail if he goes, well, and then who knows now, but you presume he still would, but yeah.
Right. And so he's like filming from inside cars and like keeping himself hidden as much as possible and casting a lot of like not professional actors. And I think because of that, like again, the movie itself is maybe a little bit, it's only an hour 43, but still was a little bit long for what it was, I thought. And a little on the nose with the dialogue a lot of the time, although that could have been bad translation for the subtitles, which did feel a little off at times. But yeah, I mean, I think like a really cool movie to have been made, but as as having the experience of watching it was not as interesting, I think, as the concept of it.
I think the premise is really good. I think the sort of predicament that seems like I'm undermining the experience that they're all going through, but kind of like that situation that they're all in, the premise of the movie, and then the last scene I think is just remarkable, and I think so viscerally emotional and good, that I probably rated a bit higher than you. But I hear that.
Yeah. I also watched a movie called Lurker.
I love Lurker. I feel like it didn't get
Yeah.
any attention this last year. Yeah.
Which is basically just about it's weird because it has such a it doesn't feel like a new movie. It feels like this movie
I agree with this.
could have been and was made in like 2012.
Yes.
And yet it was still fun. It was a good time. It's basically just a sort of fan of this musical artist manages to sort of infiltrate his circle of friends or like the people around him, and it's weird and creepy, and it was interesting. I thought it was a fun movie.
Yeah, I think Tira Palarin is really good, as is Archie Madekwe. I think this was good. I think this was really fun. Yeah, totally went under the radar last year. It's on Mubi. I think you may, yeah. So I do recommend it. And don't really look up anything before you go watch it. Just
Yeah.
vibe out with it. Yeah.
All right. Anything else? There's a couple of shows coming up, but that's about.
I did watch Sarat as well. Have you seen?
Yes, I talked about Sarat, and I wanted to talk to you about it.
So I
should we do some spoilers for Sarat?
It's so fun. Yeah, I feel like it's really hard to talk about Sarat without spoiling it. So
let's
wait
until the end and do just a slight Sarat spoiler.
Okay.
Although you give your thoughts, give your unspoiled thoughts first.
I really like it. I get that people bounce off of it. It's sort of, in terms of it being, I don't know. I really loved it. I feel like it's a thing. There even before you sort of realize that it's sort of set, sort of, unknowing future-esque a little bit. I feel like the world building, I think, is like very, very good, even though the world building is very minimalist. But like going to find your daughter at a rave in the desert, that premise, and like the sound is phenomenal in this movie. I really enjoyed it. But I do like, these sort of like harder to watch movies. So yeah.
Sarat, an interesting one in that it also, for me, gave no indication whatsoever what the movie was about for like the first 10 minutes.
Yes.
But then because like the first 10 minutes are just like a rave scene.
Yes, they're setting up the speakers and then raving out.
Interesting though. Okay, so let me just talk briefly. We've got a couple of movies coming. Project Hail Mary is probably the biggest one. I've said before, probably don't look it up as much as possible, in my opinion.
Too late. They're already doing it. People have been doing it. I'm so mad at the trailer.
I get it. If you haven't already, don't look it up. In fact, don't even look at the poster.
Agreed.
But maybe go see it if it's. I think there's actually gonna be an early screening of it, which I think for like it's being screened a week early in a lot of different markets. Yes. So I think we'll get a lot of reviews early, and that kind of signals to me that they're pretty confident about how good it is.
The release date is March 20th, but I'm seeing it this Friday in a special.
Yes, exactly. So I expect it's going to be very good and potentially very popular. So check it out. Probably go see it as soon as you can if you don't know anything about it. And again, try not to look up as much as you can. And then Ready or Not 2 is also coming out soon. Ready or Not, a very, very fun little horror movie that came out a few years ago. And it's finally getting its sequel. So I'm excited for that one as well.
Okay. There's a new Sunny Nights is a Will Forte, Darcy Carden comedy that's coming out on Hulu. I think all episodes are dropping on Wednesday. I like Will Forte. I like Darcy Carden, so I'll check this out. There is also One Piece season 2.
One Piece season 2. Very excited about this. I've now read most of One Piece. So yes. I'm much more attached to the source material than I was when I watched the first season. Very excited to watch the second season. In fact, they are going to be screening the first 2 episodes in theaters on the release day. So I plan to go see it tomorrow.
Okay, fun. I'm excited. Yeah. I loved season 1 of One Piece. So, and great. I had not watched any and knew nothing about One Piece and thought it was just like really exceptional, fun television. The Madison is a new Taylor Sheridan show that's
Yeah.
coming on Paramount Plus. Michelle Pfeiffer, Kurt Russell.
Just more of these,
Southwest Montana. Yep, sort of living on a ranch show. And then
Yeah.
Scarpetta. I'm pretty sure I think that what they do is they put Nicole Kidman on television sets, and then when they're done with her, they put her in a room, and then the next day they take her out and she makes more television. She's in this Prime show with Jamie Lee Curtis, where what is this? She's a forensic pathologist.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's yep. She solves crimes, I believe. This is what she does. So, yep, Scarpetta.
There you go.
Based on books, I believe. So, yeah.
Couple other ones. Last One Laughing.
Oh,
in the
I'm
UK,
so excited for this.
which had a very fun first season, is coming back for a second season. Very excited about that. And
the
Jet
cast
Lag.
on that looks great. Yeah.
Jet Lag the game.
Nice.
Which I don't think is on IMDb, but is on Nebula. Oh, there it is. On Nebula, coming out with its 17th season, Taiwan, very soon, this week, I believe. So that's very exciting. Or sorry, that's actually next week, I think. And then also Invincible season 4 is coming next week. So there's a bunch of stuff coming up. Exciting stuff.
If we're talking next week too, I think Jury Duty comes out next.
Oh yes, yeah, Jury Duty season 2.
A show that everybody who watches the show likes the show, and I have not seen, but Deadlock is a show. It's an Australian black comedy. I do feel like I'm pretty high on the Australian comedies. So, yeah. I think by the next time we're back, The Comeback will be out too. So there's a lot of TV heating up, as I said.
Yes. All right. And let's talk about Sarat. Let's talk about Sarat. Grace, you watched it. I brought this up a couple weeks ago, maybe a bit longer, because I watched this movie and I was like, I have so many thoughts. I'm not sure how I feel about it. And I was hoping you would watch it. So I'm very curious to know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, so I'm pretty close to being able to finish the Oscars death race, watching everything that got nominated for an Oscar. I just have 3 movies left, I believe. So I watched Sarat. I watched it. Did I watch it last night, the night before? Okay, so I loved this
Spoilers
movie.
for Sarat.
Spoilers.
To be clear, we're now spoiling.
I loved this movie for most of it, and then it became. I have very complicated feelings, and I still think I love it. But there is a bit of me that feels like there's a point in this movie. It's the big moment. So maybe I'll give people a minute. But I mean, the premise here, he's looking for his daughter, joins up with these ravers. They're going to go to the other rave. They're going across it's sort of like World War III territory. So, they're sort of, trying to find his daughter. They get the car out of the rut, and then the boy and his dog crash off the cliff and die. And then the minefield where 3 more people die. The 3 more, I think 3 of them.
At least 3 of them, yeah.
And I think for me the hardest part is that like it kind of just ends. Like they don't find his daughter. They don't even seem to like get fully where they were going. It just sort of is over. And I think that's the part that I am having the most conflicted feeling, because I'm seeing a lot of complaints about it. They're like, oh, it's so nihilist. Like, what? This was so unfun to watch. For me, there is like a lot of love in this movie and also a lot of death. So I think I'm still trying to work through how I feel, Taran.
That's how I felt, because I feel like so basically it presents itself as one thing, which is a pretty already like artsy kind of like, here we're on a quest to find the daughter who is missing, and over time you start to get the sense that like she's not really missing as much as she's just kind of like doing her own thing, and the father maybe can't let go of that. And so, it feels like it's going along one path, and then they're up on this cliff, and and this is so, in my opinion, brilliantly done, where in many ways you are fearful for the dog here. The dog has already been in some danger before,
Yes.
and your piece playing with the dog, and it's like get in the car, and then
Yeah, I didn't
the
like when he's
car.
just like walking all around.
I
He's
was like,
playing
"What are
catch
you
with the dog
doing?"
on the top
And
of
then
the
he says,
cliff.
"Get
Did
in the
not
car."
like
I'm
it.
like, "Yeah, maybe he should get in the car. He's being too
I know.
reckless." And then the car just starts backing up, and before anybody has any time to really think, including you as the viewer, it just backs off the cliff. And it's
Yeah.
just one kind of continue, in my memory at least, one continuous shot as it backs off the cliff. You never look down.
No.
Um, and it's one of the most jarring and shocking things I think I've seen in film, that I just could not have expected to happen in the way that it did. And it really did like provoke the feelings in me of like when really bad, tragic things happen, like accident, like, oh, like this accident just happened and it just like that, it's done, it's happened, like you've hurt yourself, or somebody else just got hurt, or whatever. And it's just, that's how it happens. It's not like a movie where there's like build up and, you can sort of see it coming. Um, or anything like, and it was so, and then it's so devastating because it completely, like, all I could think about was like, what, wait, and I was so mad it genuinely made me mad at the
Yes.
movie. I was just like,
Yes.
well, this is so stupid. Like, what is the point of this quest to find one daughter if you lose your son in the process? Like, this whole thing has become moot. And I was mad about it, and I couldn't stop being mad about it. And like as they were continuing through, they were trying to process, but also like move forward and survive. And then they get to this place in the middle of the desert, and they start to have this like hypnotic, sort of therapeutic rave session with the music.
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, I guess this is sort of about like trying to cope with like the grief of loss and like finding found, and then they blow up.
Yeah. Well, there's two. Yeah. I mean, it's why that moment is why one of them blows up. The other one goes to check on her or like get her, and he also blows up. And then later, as they try to continue to cross through the minefield, another one of them blows up. So three of
Mhm.
them die. The son has already died, and the dog has died. There's
And
three
it
of them left.
also
Yeah.
feels so pointless. They shouldn't have ever even been out there. Like
So yeah.
that's part of it, right? Is
Okay.
that it
So
Yeah, go ahead.
well, but the big piece of this movie that is like it sort of is slowly the first rave is broken up by these like is broken up by the military, and
Mhm.
there's like if you're a European citizen you have to go over here, if you're not you're going to go over there, and there's like there is a sense, like part of me, this is my own ignorance, to be like, oh, I guess like this is somewhere on a border, and like so like whatever, and so some of these people like this is what would because I'm in the world where this is about a real thing that has happened right now, which I assume that I guess are there raves in the desert? I don't know, but
I'm sure.
but the film as it's unfolding and as we're listening to the radio, more and more like we're essentially in World War III, like we're in,
Mhm.
and that context I think is so important in the sense that, and then the other piece that is so important is that two of the people who are part of the rave group are people who have one guy has lost a leg and one guy has lost an arm, and so not that that is hugely important in terms of them as characters, but I think it is important that it's because part of me is like, okay, what is this for? Because to your point, I think when they start doing the rave dance part, there's a little bit of, yeah, like how do we grieve? How do we get through? How do we move on and live our life? And then that gets interrupted, and so then I'm like, and then to the point that we never get to the second rave. We end with them getting through the minefield. They're on a train with a bunch of other people, and that's it. And it's not, there is, I think, very much like not a conclusion to this film, at least in a traditional sense. And so me, I'm sitting there thinking like, what is the point? There is a line that I think is hugely important in there's a scene, and it's when he's talking with, I can't remember what the woman's name is, but she's sort of like the shaved head, and the earring, but she has like a little, and they're talking about every time they break like that, she's speaking about a speaker that she's repaired. They toss them, but I love how it sounds. This one blew out the party. I recycle everything. And the guy says, to me, they all sound equally noisy. And she says, but look, the same sound never repeats. You never know if this will be the last sound it makes. And to me, then that's right before basically most of the characters, including that woman, die. And there's something about like living, repurposing the speaker, and using it to listen to music is the equivalent of what you do with your own what do you do with your life? Even, I think, especially in this world, because I think to your point that it's pointless. Like, why would you risk your son's life to go find your daughter? But in this world, I don't know that there's anything for them to go back to. Like
Well, yeah,
I don't know.
I think, like, to me, it felt like the movie aggressively rejected you finding any meaning in it. Like, it actively fought against you as you tried to like wrap it into some kind of like, oh, this makes sense contextually, narratively, thematically. It said no. Like, I refuse. In many ways, I think that is part of what the movie is. It's about forcing you to let go of all your sort of like human instincts of trying to find meaning in things, and accepting the sort of all maybe random brutality of the world, maybe a sort of more religious understanding of the world. I think that like the walking through the minefield, not just like fully giving up, fully surrendering yourself to theoretically a higher power or something like that, like being the thing that gets him through the minefield. I think it's a very Sarat is like, I think to my memory, like it's a very narrow path that you must walk.
It's the bridge in Islamic tradition that connects hell and paradise.
Yes, and I think Islam is a very key part of this. The Islamic religion is a very key part of this movie, and in so many ways, like the feeling I got was that this is like an allegory. This is like a story that you might find in a religious text. About like, those kinds of stories was like, oh, well, this person needed to sacrifice their son to a god, or like, or like this person lost their son or lost their child, and they needed to like, they still had their pride and they needed to like give in to, but told in such a more modern way where like the characters actually were people, and like had their own sort of ideas and thought processes for how like things could work, and presented in a narrative that is so familiar that you think you know what's happening. This isn't presented as a parable, as an allegory. It's presented as a story, and then becomes more of an allegory over time, which feels much more brutally like ripped out of the context with which you thought you were. And so it's so difficult for me to like fully wrap my head around, in part because I'm not very familiar with these with Islamic religion, or many religions in general. But also because like it was such a difficult film to parse to begin with, and I think it doesn't want to be parsed very much. But that's also what I found so compelling about it, is how aggressively it rejected me trying to understand it or contextualize it in a way that was familiar to me. And so, yeah, these were all the thoughts that were running through my head as I was like watching the credits roll. I was like, how do I understand this movie? And I'm still not entirely sure, but it compelled me for sure, and it has continued to leave me thinking about it all this time.
I'm sort of like blown away by it. And I think that I remember talking one time about, I messaged Kevin Jacobs about the movie Beau is Afraid, and I was like, what'd you think? And he was like, oh, I didn't like it, but I think that's how I was supposed to feel, so I think it's good. And I kind of feel that's the same about this, where it's like,
yeah,
I am like, yeah, I'm pretty I'm pretty annoyed by many of the things that happen in this movie, and yet I do think it's sort of a beautiful spiritual thing that I watched. You know, I think it's like a very compelling. And again, that thing I said in the last section about like being in a theater where audience get like I was stunned at least two moments in this film. The car and the
I
first
think
time the landmine blows up.
I think I was reading that a lot of people like walked out of this
Yeah,
movie
yeah.
at various points in the
I
movie.
I think the acting is really phenomenal in this as well.
Yeah.
I think the guy who played Sergio Lopez, who plays Lewis, is really good. And then the sort of ensemble here as well is really strong. Um, yeah, I really loved it, but I don't know. It's certainly a challenging film.
Very challenging. And this is probably a very niche discussion because it really will not work for anybody that hasn't seen it, and I doubt many people have. But I was so fascinated by it. I needed to talk about it with someone.
I'm
All right,
upset I
that's
didn't
our.
see it at TIFF because I know it played at TIFF, and I
Mm,
couldn't end up fitting into my schedule. So I'm disappointed, but I've caught it.
yeah. All right, that's our Sarat discussion. Thank you all for joining. Hope you found this episode informative. And we'll be back. Grace will, I'm sure, have something for you next week. We'll be back in a bit with some more once we've watched many of these things. I don't think I'm going to be able to watch Project Hail Mary opening weekend.
Well,
Unfortunately.
technically next weekend, like next weekend.
Yeah,
Do you
like the
mean?
20th.
That's okay. We'll get to
Um,
it. We'll get to it.
but I'll watch it eventually.
Yeah.
I've read the book, so I don't need to worry about the spoiler.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else to plug, Grace?
I'm on social media at Hi From Grace, writing for Parade and Pop Heist, and This Entrance Cinema. Last week was Ratatouille. This week is Carol. So excited for that. And I think I can announce this. I'm doing Philly and I. We loved A Night of the Seven Kingdoms so much. We're doing a full Game of Thrones rewatch. So on streaming
Boy.
page, we started episode 1. It's a treat to be back. It's so I feel like this, like Chappelle said a thing. He said, "It gets fun until it's not." In which case, I think it will also still be fun because the show will be not as good. It's only like 70 episodes, so
Oh yeah,
nothing
we
huge.
didn't mention that there was Game of Thrones news after we did our spin-off
Yes.
episode that
Mhm.
they have announced in a very strange turn of events. One of my things was Game of Thrones, but Andor, and then they hired an Andor writer to
Yeah,
write a Game of Thrones
that's right.
movie about Aegon's conquest, which
Yeah,
is not exactly Andor, but
that's okay. And a play, right? The Mad King play is happening. Like they're doing all sorts of stuff. So
mm,
yeah.
and who knows where that goes as well with the Paramount acquisition. Anyway, that's what we've got. Find me over on. I've got a Patreon, Taran Armstrong, watching all kinds of reality shows. Survivor 50 is airing and has the second episode recently. I watched was probably my favorite Survivor episode in a very long time. It's been very good so far. Hopefully, it stays that way. Australian Survivor is happening as well. I'm covering that on the Patreon. House of Villains I'm watching, as well as I'll be watching Jet Lag and all kinds of fun stuff over on my Patreon. So check it out. And I believe that's it. That's what we've got. So thank you all so much for joining us this week. I will see all of you next time.